Craig Barcett to do the pledge and say the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, just want to pray to you and thank you for the blessing that it is to be stewards of this great city, Lord. And I pray that your wisdom fills this room as we make decisions on behalf of our citizenry, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Just remind everybody, this is the city's version of 60 Minutes. So we will shut this down at 1 o'clock. So I'll try to come up with a 5-minute warning or something, a 2-minute warning as we move on. I would seek a motion for approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Brent motions.
I second.
Krista seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Citizen comments. Anyone like to make a citizen comment? There's 2 people sitting in the front row, but no, we're good. All right, we'll move on to ex parte. I'm not going to read it. You guys have any conflicts with anything? No. Okay. Moving right along. We don't have any appointments. We don't have a consent agenda. So new business. Sound wave with fireworks, a summer ball showdown. Mr. Micah.
Might need that.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, this is I-1, this is the baseball tournament summer ball showdown. We'll be coming to Daughter on July 31st through August 4th, which is Monday through Sunday, and will be hosted at the Daughter Genesis Baseball Diamonds. This event will have fireworks, amplified music, food, and will potentially have a head count of around 70,000 to 21,000 people over a 5-day period during the event. Dave Bush, who is helping run the event, has asked for a waiver of the sound policy and fireworks display permit for the event similar to last year. Fireworks will be on Friday, August 2nd around 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Unless it rains, then the fireworks could be shot out at a different day within the event time frame. Summer Showdown link can be found in Exhibit I-1B. These are the sound amplification waiver that's being asked for, and fireworks that's being asked for as well under the city code. So it'd be under Chapter 11, Article 13, and Chapter 7, Article 3 for fireworks. Financially, there's a small publication fee for the publication of the ordinance, and legally it's approved as a form. It is recommended the City Council both one, waive the reading of the ordinance, and then approve the waiver for the sound ordinance and the issuance of the permit for a fireworks display for the Summer Ball Showdown event. And David's over here on my right, so if you guys have any questions related to the event, feel free to ask me at this time if you have any questions for me.
Questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the reading of the ordinance.
I second.
Brent's motion, Krista second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the waiver of the sound ordinance and the insurance of the permitted fireworks displays for the Summer Ball Showdown event.
Brent has made a motion.
Second.
Oliver seconds. Roll call.
Councilmember Hall,
Yes.
Mayor Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Trailer,
Yes.
Councilmember Collins,
Yes.
and the ordinance 968.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Dave, good luck. Yeah.
See you guys out there probably.
All right.
Go.
Item 2, budget workshop.
Okay, so we define a whole workshop for presenting the budget. We may have more discussions about it going forward. This definitely would be other actions taken for adoption of the budget. But we're talking about the appropriated funds. By appropriated, I'm talking about funds that are supported by mill levies. That's the general fund, bond interest fund, and water fund. So this is an overview of the general fund. It's typical format. Bar left column is prior year actuals. We've got what we adopted for 24, estimated for 24, proposing for 25, and 26. The proposal for 25 for year taxes and franchises, that's going to include the assumption of a up to 10 mil property tax increase. And over here, I provided this in the last meeting, but again, this just shows what the impact of a 10 mil or 1% of assessed value, mill impact would be on a $250,000 home. So, $250,000 home, the mill would go from about $900 a year up to about $1,200 a year. So $287.50 difference is what that mill impact would be on a $250,000 home. This is the tax revenue, so you can see there that's quite a bit more in that one tax, which is property tax. That includes 10 mills, so about 770,000 of that difference is an additional 10 mil. The rest of the growth is just regular growth of valuation. So there'll still be some growth even without adding a mill in, but to do the street projects we want to do, we would require that additional revenue. And it's good to think about too is that even though we're seeing a lot of growth in valuation, we need to remember that like a lot of that gets spoken for just in the regular cost increases that happen as of course doing business year to year. We're in a particularly high inflationary period right now, and there's really no knowing whether or not that's going to continue or not. I'm assuming that it will continue, at least in some portion. The election may have an impact on it like it did last time, but we're in a different world than we were in 2016. So, as far as the other tax revenues, this motor vehicle tax increase, this is going up slightly. This is just estimates that we get from the state and the county that reflect what they're expecting their motor vehicle increases to be, or motor vehicle taxes. Recreational vehicle tax, 60-20-year truck tax, commercial vehicle tax, and watercraft are all those estimates come directly from the county. Franchise fees, I'm assuming we'll see a small uptick just as we add more homes and things like that. We'll see more franchise fees for electric and gas primarily is where we get that from. We're seeing pretty decent growth in the Sedgwick County portion sales tax. So I anticipate another, I think I estimate 3% growth in that from last year to this year, and then this year to next year. Compensated use tax county, I think I proposed a slightly higher increase. We did about a 3% increase proposed or estimate for the city portion of the sales tax, and then 8% increase for the city's compensated use tax. Compensated use tax is tax paid on, essentially sales tax paid for outside the district. So if you buy something on Amazon, you pay sales tax there. That gets reported differently, and that's what that portion of the tax is. Other revenue. Can you forward me a slide, sir? Clear your number. There we go. Wait, is that you or me? So, other revenue is pretty straightforward. I am going to propose or estimate the growth, continued growth in permits next year. Most of the building permits, obviously. We've seen a much higher than prior year use of money property. That's mostly going to be interest on our earnings. We got like over 5% on the last CD that we purchased, and then our just interest rates across the board are higher right now, so we're getting a lot of interest for the first time in a long time.
Matt, just to clarify, that third column is estimated 2024, fourth column budgeted 2025.
Yeah, those numbers are wrong. I'm sorry, the spreadsheet did not make that big, so or I probably posted it on one. But yeah, forward those all 3 years, so I apologize for that. Yeah.
So the fourth column is the 2025 proposed budget.
Yeah, we're just going to yeah, I apologize. There's a spreadsheet error that caused that. But yeah, again, our biggest source of funding for general fund is going to be taxes. A good chunk of that, about half the tax revenues from property taxes. So this is we look at the expenditure side now. This basically shows the breakdown of our general government operations. This is going to be admin, mayor, city council, city hall, which are expenses for this building specifically, and then our court. I got it broken down by department, and then overall, just a look at, how in total those are broken down by function. So, you know, personnel, personal services, personnel costs, essentially, salaries and benefits for employees. That's always gonna be our biggest expenditure. And then contractual, that's gonna be things like electric for the building, you know, admin portion of, fees for legal services and things like that. Commodities are gonna be physical things that we buy, so office supplies, computers, other equipment, things like that. Non-operating expenses, that's typically going to be, like, you know, money that the council approves for, like, donated to public organizations. I think there's the women's club is included in that. And then capital outlay discretionary, that bottom line item, that is going to be the line item where we use to essentially adopt budget authority for any anticipated, carryover fund balance. So when we present the final budget, this number down here that shows any fund balance of 2.8 million, that's gonna be zeroed out, and that is gonna be shifted up to this line item here. So we have the spending authority to use that either to transfer to capital improvement, which we're gonna need to transfer some of it to capital improvement, to pay for, you know, the beginning, whatever the first stage of the North Park project is. And then also, it's just a good idea to have it, the ability to spend it, so we know that, you know, we're not gonna go over budget, first of all, but also, in case we get some good deal, and we're able to purchase, you know, we're able to do the whole park, you know, in one go, because there's some great deal on some construction company to build our playground, we'll be able to have the authority to do that. And also, it's good budget practice to, you know, carry that extra fund balance in as budget authority, and not just leave it there so you have the opportunity to spend it if you need it.
Matt, we'd also have that available for grant match. We're not always budgeting for projects
Right.
that would be supported by a grant, because it's a coin toss sometimes as whether or not the grant's awarded. But having that discretionary line item there, should we be awarded a competitive grant program, we'll have match available that would have otherwise been unbudgeted for.
Okay, so second, the actual largest cost center in, the operational costs in general fund is gonna be PD, so we have the main PD administration cost center, and then we have the smaller community outreach, animal control, crime prevention, that are other, you know, departments in our financial system that we sometimes use, sometimes don't. You can see here that PD, personnel costs are what you have most of this budget. You know, that's our biggest department. They've got much higher, contributions to, or city expenditures higher than our police officers here, probably KP&F, rather than papers like most city employees are. For city employees, we pay about 10% of their salaries into their retirement system. For PD, we pay about 25% of their salary into the retirement system. So it's a much more expensive cost for the city for their retirement than for the rest of the employees. But again, it's also by far our largest department, so they're going to have our highest expenditures there. This budget includes two vehicles for replacement next year. It's going to have 2 admin vehicles replaced, so that cost will go down a little bit, but we're going to bump it back up to the current level going into 26. We'll probably have 3 patrol vehicles to replace. Other than that, no real big significant changes to your budget, Lance, other that you've identified to me. So if you have anything, let me know before we move to the next phase. Recreation and culture, this is going to be Parks and Rec, community center, our contribution to the library, and our funding of the library building itself, as well as our funding for community events. This community events funding, typically in the past, we have paid for that, those expenditures for actually holding events ourselves. Here, this just includes the portion that we're going to essentially be using for our contract to be Chamber of Commerce who holds those events now. Personnel costs here are pretty much going to be the portion of what the city pays for part-time salaries for pool employees. There's one real cost center we have for this cost center. for personnel costs. All the contractual stuff is gonna be for, you know, all of our costs associated with running these operations. This is the biggest, the next biggest cost for the general fund is gonna be transfers. This is money we transfer from the general fund, revenue out to other funds for, those operations. So you see here, we're transferring 700,000 to the street fund. This is includes about a quarter of what we want to spend next year on street maintenance, but the rest of that is for operational costs, as far as like, you know, salaries and equipment, things like that. I thought before, for the other operational funds, we'd like to transfer to the equipment reserve fund, equally from the 4 operating funds to get about $200,000 transfer total into equipment reserve every year. We use that for equipment replacement, public works vehicle replacement. We were able to purchase the street sweeper, for instance, with money we accumulated in that fund over time. Capital improvement fund, this is going to be essentially this increases the additional levy revenue that we receive to go towards street projects in 2025. And then transfer to special parks and rec fund. We like to transfer $50,000 a year into that special parks and rec fund to pay, like I talked about last time in the special revenue workshop, for smaller scale parks projects. So anyway, all of this increase here is essentially going to be with additional revenue from sales tax if we do property tax if we do a revenue increase. Any questions about general fund? So next is the library fund. This essentially is a fund we try to keep as close to a zero fund balance as possible here, because this is property tax we levy on behalf of the library. So we levy ad valorem tax, which is property tax on real estate. We also do that also includes some motor vehicle tax and other smaller personal property taxes. So that's all this is here. There are 3 mills that we've sort of capped them at in the past. We received a budget request from the library board this past week, and everything that we're presenting here is either at or above what their request was. So I don't recommend changing anything as far as their mill. I think 3 mills is they're able to operate that. Not seeing the reason to change that. Our debt service fund, our bond interest fund. This is the fund that we use to make payment on our outstanding debt. So it's going to include mostly debt service and issuance fees and things like that. But anyway, on the revenue side, we do levy some property tax from this fund to pay for the city's portion of, essentially the debt service on the debt we issued as our contribution to the Star Bond project, and then the new bond we issued last year for the street projects. So that's what this portion of the mill levy pays for.
Matt, could I add a point to that? So we have discussions often now with all our new residential subdivisions about upsizing our arterial water and sewer mains, and the city at large typically would cover the difference between, say, if we need an 8 and 10 inch main, just the cost difference between those two sizes. In the past, I believe we just made cash contribution towards that, but we learned from our bond council a week or 2 ago through conversation that we can start spreading that out, and I would assume that would probably go in that line item. But something that is worth mentioning, that we do contribute to some of those public infrastructure improvements. That way we're accounting for future growth.
Okay.
So we also have this special tax line item here. This is revenue that we receive, essentially special assessments that are paid that we use to make debt payments on those bonds. This big outstanding line item right here, the $13 million, that is strictly there for budget purposes, or if we do retire all of our temp notes that we have next year, we have the budget authority to do so. That's why we put that big number in there. And then on the opposite side of that, for cash basis reserve, this number offsets that 30 million. So it gives us additional authority to pay down principal if we do have some of those temp notes that we need to pay off. Again, you'll see here the transfer from the water and sewer funds. That's for making the debt service payments on their respective components of for the water. It's going to be a storage tank in the supply line for the sewers, the wastewater treatment facility. And then here we just have a breakdown of the principal and interest payments for all of our debt that we're going to be making next year. And again, I bulk up this principal for temp notes right here, just in case we pay off if all of the temp notes are coming due in the budget year, we want to be able to have the authority to do it. So we don't actually plan on spending that much money.
So Matt, for this year, on the general obligation bonds, the amount we're paying on principal, is that your estimated $1,130,000?
This year, yes. That's what is due this year.
That's it, right.
Yes.
And so then after that payment at the end of the year, what's the balance approximately?
On,
General obligation bonds?
I don't, that's not going to be reflected in the budget. I can get you that information, but it's not going to be reflected in the actual budget. This is literally.
I understand, but I think in terms of understanding, we've got some limitations on how much debt we can have, and based, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that we didn't do anything else from now until the debt was paid. How much time I guess some of those payments go out to 20.
So again,
44,
that is an ever-changing number. Year to year, that number changes because every time, whenever we grow, we add more debt capacity. Basically, because that number is based on our valuation.
But today, if we didn't do anything else going forward, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Matt, we can provide the
I
council with the
can-
debt
I can-
schedule.
How much, yeah, we'd like to know how much debt we have.
Yeah. We've got the new software now that makes it real nice and easy to go see and kind of pick apart. It's very user
Now,
friendly.
we have new software that is better for, that helps us with gather that information, but we still rely on our bond counsel for providing, bond counsel and our financial advisor, Brett Shovard, for providing us with the exact numbers on.
We have a debt schedule that we could send you by the end of the day. That
Right.
stuff's readily available.
Well, I'm just trying to think more, because there's certain things to pay off earlier, then that frees up cash, which then, I mean, if this debt payment is paid off in 3 years, then that creates cash flow for the next debt service. I mean, there's kind of a roll to it.
We don't have anything maturing very soon, correct, Matt? I mean, the earliest maturity date we have on any of our debt.
Again, all the GEO bonds that we're paying down, with the exception of the bond for the street that we did last year, and then the city's portion of the two bonds we issued for the city's contribution to the Starbucks project. All the rest of those are paid down with special assessments, which has an offsetting revenue. So when those bonds pay off, we're going to see that offsetting revenue drop off as well. So that won't have
But there's the $1.7 million that we did last year that's not tied to special assessments. Is there anything else the rest of it's all tied, the rest of the general obligation bonds are all tied to special assessments?
with the exception of the 3.8 million that we
Which
contributed to the
consolidated.
Starbucks project.
Okay.
That we're paying down with fund balance and bond and interest fund and with transfer from the general fund. Or pardon me, with mill levy into this one.
Mayor, I'll send you a schedule of the debt in this, and that'll include the debt for the water distribution main that runs along the trail,
We have,
the
I can
sewer
give
plant.
you for you today.
Yep.
I have it already. But again, for budget purposes, that's not,
I understand.
I'm not presenting that here.
I understand,
So that's part of
but-
the discussion for a different time.
We've
Are
got
there any
35
questions about the budget? I just want to point out too that we will not end next year with a $2,000 ending fund balance. This right here is really just essentially what I'm going to show you for general fund. I plugged this number in here to basically put aside, or essentially hold that ending fund balance as budget authority, even though we're not planning to spend it. I very much doubt we'll spend that money. I pretty much put everything that we would spend in technical principle up here already, so. We use those, we basically use this number and then that capital and discretionary line item as general fund to get our mill levy at the level we want it set at. Any other budget questions before we move forward? I'm sure that we'll have discussions at the next meeting about where we want our, where we're actually going to set the mill levy at. Next meeting, we'll need to essentially schedule the public hearing, which will take place on the 3rd of September. So we'll schedule a public hearing for the budget, we'll schedule the R&R hearing for the budget. We need to publish that 10 days prior, so we could do it at the next, we could schedule that at the next meeting, I believe. But worst case scenario, we'd have to set that by the second meeting in August.
I think September 3rd would be good. That way they have adequate time to get feedback when those notices go out.
September 3rd is probably the last opportunity. I think we have one of two opportunities to actually hold those hearings, either September 3rd or September 17th.
Yeah.
So I would recommend having that meeting. I would recommend scheduling the public hearing for September 3rd. That way, if you decide you want to change something and hold another public hearing for whatever reason, you have that option. But I don't recommend that. I recommend holding the hearing on that meeting. That'll give you 3 regular meetings in August to discuss. But I would recommend setting that public hearing no later than the second meeting in August. You need 10 days of publication time before you can hold the hearing. And so that wouldn't happen. The earliest you could do that would be that third Thursday in August, and you'll need that time before you can hold the public hearing.
My hope is that we can certify the budget Tuesday, September 3rd, after we have our hearings. But if you guys decide you want to take some extra time, we've got a little extra time, as Matt's alluding.
In addition to the 2 patrol units, is there anything else in the budget that?
They're not patrol, they're
Well,
administrative
the vehicles.
Yeah.
I think you had $130,000 in there. Or is there anything else in the budget that you consider to be capital expenditures that are kind of in the plan for next year?
No, PD is the only real department where we budget those kind of purchases. Public works vehicles get paid for out of the equipment reserve fund, and we do that because those are, the equipment reserve fund is a non-budgeted fund, technically, meaning that we don't have to issue we don't have to adopt a expenditure authority for that fund. So basically we spend whatever fund balance we have there. And most of our capital purchases are not budgeted, they're included in non-budgeted funds. So as long as we have fund balance to spend, we can expend those monies.
The capital
So-
purchases in the non-budgeted funds would be like your pump station for rural water district, the salt storage facility that we're still trying to get put together. We got some park stuff that may leak into next year. Obviously the North Park itself, but that's going to include some debt issuance, so it may be unrelated. But there are going to be some capital projects that come out of those non-budgeted funds.
So when we finalize that 10-year capital budget, that's going to kind of give you that's kind of the budget for those kind of capital expenditures. We just don't have a lot of built into our operating budget for that very reason. We'd rather budget transfers to our reserve and capital funds, so we have the flexibility to make capital purchases, capital projects without impacting our budget. Because our budget is, whatever the budget is we adopt, that's the cap on expenditures. We can't spend more than that unless we go and redo the entire budget process for a budget amendment. That's a hassle that's not worth getting into. So that's why we budget transfers rather than projects within the operating budgets.
Thank you. Any other questions?
What about the budget cuts?
We'll talk about that later.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, just a few brief updates of the day-to-day business of the city. Senior Meals Program, city staff and community stakeholders will be attending the CEP AAA Advisory Council meeting on August 21st to advocate for the Senior Meals Program. That agency will be doing a site inspection in the next week or two. The anticipated program startup date is October 1, so pretty excited and thankful for Mayor Lee, Assistant City Administrator Ryan Schrack, Karen Keatley, and Amanda Treadwell, and a lot of folks have been working hard to try to bring that program to fruition. It's going to be great for our seniors. We're filling a real gap in our services. So more to come on that soon. Linear Park Playground, Public Works Director gave me an update. One of the companies that we've been waiting on a quote from, they've given us notice that they're not going to provide an estimate, but they gave us a peer company that they feel will give an estimate. So I really hope to be able to get this back to council in the next 1 or 2 meetings, because we're a few months now since we first brought this to your attention, but we've been having a hard time getting some competitive proposals from these different providers. So we'll have more on that soon. The wayfinding signage, Ryan, our Assistant City Administrator, he's put together the request for proposals for 14 wayfinding signs, and anticipate seeing that on the next council agenda, requesting authorization to advertise the request for proposals. Those will be due August 30th. The Aurora Water District 4 cross connection, our city engineer with CEDPA, he's out of town this week, but I'm going to be checking in with him to see if we need to pivot to a different firm to complete that planning design for us. With the size of our operation, the amount of work we have going on, there's probably a log jam of to-dos over there, and if we need to move to a different firm so we can get that taken care of, we will. It's really important that we get that project going. So the most important part of it's done, which was the wholesale purchase agreement. So we don't want to rest on our laurels, but you know, we're in a good place with that still. So a budget schedule, Matt just kind of went through that, but we will have the comprehensive budget presentation. So all of this tied together on August 5th, and at the end of that, we will set the public hearing date for both the revenue neutral rate and the regular budget hearing for Tuesday, September 3rd. If you guys are good with everything, you're ready to go, we can have those hearings that night, September 3rd. You guys can approve the budget, and we can get it certified and sent out to the county clerk. If you want some additional time, as Matt alluded, we may have one more council meeting that we can wait to actually certify the budget. So if you guys are wanting to make some tweaks after the 3rd, we'll have a little window of opportunity to do that.
So if we wanted to have another budget discussion, say next meeting, can we put that on the agenda then?
August 5th, there will be.
Okay.
Yes.
So
So, Matt, and correct me if I'm wrong, but ready to go.
Right away.
Well, we're paying you by the hour now, so that's cool.
that,
But we'll have a.
you clocked out at 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was timekeeping. We will have everything that's been discussed in the workshop will be tied together into one comprehensive budget presentation. That'll be done on August 5th, and at the end of that, you guys can provide us with comments and feedback. You will also set the regular public hearing and the revenue neutral rate public hearing for September 3rd. We can present even more before those public hearings on the
At that point
3rd.
then too, we can discuss the mill levy, because we set the cap at 10.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I mean, that's the appropriate time to kind of hash those things out and try to determine where we're going to land on that.
Yep. Yep. When we do that comprehensive budget presentation on the 5th, that'll be a further opportunity for that dialogue. Further opportunity again on September 3rd. If you still feel like you want to, take another couple of weeks, we can go even further into the month of September. I am pretty sure that we have until the first week of October to certify it. What he was sharing seemed a little more like we had less time, but unless something's changed, since we voted to exceed the revenue neutral rate, we should have through, I believe, the first Monday in October. I want to say October 10th, but we'll check on that. We don't really want to drag it out that long. I mean, we'd like to get it certified so we can move on to other things. The budget is a big part of our work and it takes a lot of time, but whatever you guys want to do is what we'll do. So that's a big part of your work as well, is setting that budget. So it's really our guidepost for the next year. Any other questions about budget? Okay. CIP document still coming together. Trans-Systems is working on a big part of that with the capital roadway projects. That's broken out by departments and project types, and the roads is obviously the biggest thing. Luckily, we have them kind of working on that concurrently to the other things we have going. Goddard North Park on July 10th. We have the second public open house this Friday. We will be present at the Goddard School District Community Retreat, and then we are hoping, this hasn't been locked in yet, August 8th, that we will be at one of the schools for the back to school open house so we can receive feedback from the young folks on the direction for the park that we're working on building over there. This is the story map. It's been updated. If you haven't had a chance to go to the open houses or be as involved in this as you'd like to be, and you're kind of wondering where we're at, what designs are being discussed, go to that story map. If you hit the community page tab on the city website, North Park map will pop up. If you click on that map, it'll take you to the story map area. And you can see all the options, all the process and everything that's going on there. Our new CFO will start next week on Thursday. That's August 1st. Her name is Brooke Carroll. I kind of told you a little bit about her last time. So the CPRG grant, we did receive notice last week that it was not rewarded. The EPA received $33 billion in funding requests for the $4.3 billion available. We only asked for $5 million out of $4.3 billion, so I feel like we should have been given a better shake. But the good news is we have all of that material that was put together for that application, and we can pivot and utilize it to apply for other programs, the ATIP program being one of those. And then when CPRG rolls back around next year. So we will utilize those documents that we paid for to apply for other funding opportunities. There's 2 or 3 other programs that we can look at. The Goddard Park Master Plan. So city staff, namely our Assistant City Administrator, are working on a master plan to tie together the near-term park projects, and we're kind of working on putting vision to paper. There's been lots of conversation about what's happening at Rustic Creek, what do we want to do over at Means, linear park additions and some things like that. Obviously the North Park, we have the previous, I'll call it master plan in air quotes, that an architectural firm did for linear park when we were doing the splash pad pavilion. Essentially we're pulling all that together into one comprehensive document. We're going to put our vision to paper, one, because we've got a lot of ideas. It's time to kind of refine that down and make some future decisions, especially when we're talking about Means Park and then the Rustic lot that we have over there. When do we want to do that and what's that going to look like? Secondly, we need this document for a grant that we're applying for this fall to go towards subsidizing the North Park project. We're applying for a Kansas Department of Wildlife, Park and Tourism's program. Hopefully we can get a few $100,000 to help with the North Park through that. So having that master plan is required of that. The monument entryway signs, I believe we're about a week or less out from the RFPs being due. I think we're expecting at least 2 proposals. After we receive those, we'll deliver a recommendation to the City Council. National Night Out, Friday, August 9th at Linear Park. You see some future agenda items on here. We had our senior staff meeting this morning. Chief Beagley provided a positive report from the Dam Jam events over the weekend. Micah's already starting to churn out economic impact data, which is looking really good. We're excited to present that. We had obligated ourselves to council to present an update on our usage of the Placer AI software. So we're kind of using this as an opportunity to do that. We're gathering the economic impact data from not only Dam Jam, but also some of the markets and some of the other community events, and we'll package that together. And Micah will present that on either the 5th and at the latest the 2nd meeting in August. So you can see how we've been using Placer, but you can also see the impact, the economic impact of these community events and what they bring to the city. The work behind these businesses on the west side of Main Street in that alley, that'll begin on July 31st. Public Works will be notifying business owners this week of those interruptions. The sewer plant digesters, if you remember, you guys approved awarding a bid to clean out the digesters. They started that work yesterday. They might already be done, but I got some pictures of what those tanks look like empty. So I'll share those with you all, but that work is near completion. And then North Frontage Road, it was brought to my attention today that during the design process, we underestimated how far we needed to cut back into the business owner driveways or property owner driveways there. To make a clean cut there, they're having to go back an extra 3 or 4 feet in some instances. And so that's creating additional cubic yards of concrete being necessary to place back, plus additional excavation expense. We are like 40% through what we had budgeted for cubic yards of concrete on those driveways, and this leg of the project's probably less than a third of the total project. So we're anticipating at some point in the next few weeks for him to come back to council and discuss a change order for additional cubic yards of concrete due to those driveway approaches. You don't want to go short on those, or else you're going to have potholes and cracks and unevenness and other issues perhaps where the asphalt meets the concrete there. Lastly, there's a meeting next week about a county traffic study that's taken about 3 years now to put together. There's a lot of conversation about one of the intersections over there that is often a hot topic in our community because of the dangers that are prevalent. It's not a meeting that's open to the public at this point, so staff will send out more detail to the council, but we'd like to see 1 or 2 council people come meet with us and the county engineer to have that internal discussion. So first 2 that email me back, we'll get you in there. So I found that.
RSVP, I already did that. The little
Did you?
they accept.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like we already got 2
I
then.
thought I had ordered 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
And there will be subsequent meetings, and there will be public meetings, I'm assuming too, so others will have an opportunity. And of course, those of us that are there will provide you with feedback.
Anything else? Welcome back. Huh?
Thank you.
Where's the sun being at?
Well, I'm pale skinned, so I was wearing my professional fishing gear from Columbia, while I was swimming in the pool. So, yeah, keeping covered up and all that. So, but no, I also wanted to say, I watched the meeting. Staff did an amazing job, ran the show very well, and really happy with how things went last week. So, thankful for their filling in my absence. And yeah, business as usual. We'll move right along. Thank you.
Okay.
So what I've given you, just briefly
Yeah,
cover,
go ahead.
is our stated debt capacity. So these numbers are accurate through our most recent GEO temp note from April. So number to think about most is at the very bottom, the 9.4 million. That is our additional capacity to issue debt. Now, every time we issue a GEO bond for like a neighborhood or a subdivision project, not all of that is subject to our debt capacity. If you see there, if you look like at the most recent temp note, 72.24% of that is exempt from this calculation. So of that 3.5 million, only about 1 million of it is actually applicable to our debt capacity. So if we were going to add another one of that size, it would drop that $9 million to 8.4 million essentially. But again, this is also outdated in the fact that this is only using our assessed valuation from last year. So that went up another 14% additionally. So we're going to have that much more ability to issue debt. So that calculation will be done at the end of the year after the valuation and stuff's all certified. So like I said, it's an ever-moving number. It moves when we make principal payments. It moves when we have our new valuation numbers. It moves as, you know, temp notes are converted into permanent financing. So, you know, it's an ever-changing, you know, we don't have a, you know, outstanding debt number that we need to be, that we can put as like a concrete number to work down from.
So if you were to
Always
guess,
changing.
if you were to guess at the end of the year with the increase in our assessed valuation, what do you think our additional debt capacity would be?
That's gonna depend on how much more in principle, that's a question for your financial advisor, because we're gonna have how many more or temp notes added this year, and how much of those temp notes are gonna be exempt. So-
A lot. So, that's my answer. No, I mean, honestly though, we are gonna have more petitions on the 5th, and I believe we've retired everything we're retiring this year into permanent financing. But I think a large part of it too, and I was talking to Kevin Cowan about that, but he was wondering what our assessed valuation was every year. And, you know, it's just, it seems on average, and Matt probably knows better than I do, but it seems to be around 14 to 17% assessed valuation every year. Because building permits take about 6 months to come online. And so every 6 months, every time we issue a building permit, it takes 6 months from the issuance of the building permit for it to come online. And so every year we issue more building permits, and so you can see how this just kind of, it just keeps going. And so we have a lot of growth, and that means that we can borrow more money, basically, and keep funding more growth.
Matt, I don't know if you've mentioned this. Sorry, Micah.
Yeah.
Are you done?
That's it. Just a lot.
I was exchanging a message with my colleague, but one of the great importances of our 10-year capital improvement program is I was informed by Kevin Cowan, our bond counsel, that if we adopt that and we issue debt for some of those things, apparently statutorily, items that are adopted in your capital improvement program don't count against your debt limit. So clearly the North Park's going to be on there. Some of these roadway projects, you know, maybe we decide to issue some debt for a widening of an arterial street in a couple of years. But from what he had told me a few weeks ago, if you adopt a capital improvement program statutorily, the projects within it would not count against your debt limit. So I want to verify that and make sure there's no exceptions that aren't being considered, but I think that's important to note as we look at that fluctuating 9.5 million.
So all I will say is that 9.5 number is the highest I've ever seen it. Despite all the debt we've added, we've grown enough that number is not going down. So I'm not saying it's not going to. I'm not saying there's not a limit to how much debt we can issue, but I don't think we are yet approaching the place where that is going to be an issue.
The greater concern would be having the new revenue to service the debt on an annual
Right,
basis,
right.
rather than worrying about touching the ceiling to what we can actually borrow. You know, if you borrow a few $1,000,000 to build our North Park, as we assume we will, we're going to have to service that debt annually. Matt's got a fancy calculator, Excel sheet that you can plug in a projected interest rate, what the debt's going to be, what the cash down payment is, and then how much the annual amount is to pay on that. And we would have to have a revenue source to provide the annual revenue to pay on the debt. So that's more the issue, rather than borrowing too much per se, because we have some figurative cap.
But it also, the closer we get to that goes to zero, the more that has an impact on our bond rating too.
That is a key component as well. We need to maintain a good bond rating, which right now it's in great shape. A lot to do with our
Bond rating,
CFO.
that is a consideration in bond rating, but again, I don't anticipate you seeing that number dip much below where it's at. I don't think you see it. I don't anticipate it going anywhere near zero. Bond rating is more a matter of ability to pay. So they want to see a budget that carries forward fund balance. They want to see cash in reserve. They want to see healthy investment balances and investment practices. And so that's higher. Those kind of things are weighted higher than this, especially when we have so much capacity to borrow left over. I mean, we're over 10% of our assessed valuation, the ability to borrow. So additional. So we're in good shape. The city of Guyver is in good shape. I'm not one of we anymore, unfortunately.
You're on the payroll still, you can say. as a consultant.
We keep an eye on different ratios in public finance. It's one of the things we learn in PA school, and then Matt even more so, and government finance officer associations. But our ratios for our debt look very good, so we're in awesome shape.
Okay, one other thing while I'm thinking about it. I would like maybe to see the second quarter review that we did the first quarter. Just have those numbers put into the consent agenda so we can review that. I don't think we necessarily need to take a bunch of time in the meeting, but I think it's an
Consent
ongoing.
agenda?
Yeah, just add it in there.
You'll have a second quarter financial report. I'll make sure it's in the consent agenda at the second meeting in August at the latest.
No, that's fair. No, that's fine. I just.
It should be ready next week, but I don't want.
No, I don't want to, you've got other things you're doing that, right? But I just think we need to monitor that going that'd be helpful, so. Anything else? We'll move on to, governing body comments. Aubrey, I'll even look at you and say Aubrey instead of looking at you and say Krista.
Never know which way you're gonna go.
I don't either.
Dam Jam was awesome. I think it was a pretty good success. Kudos to our brave law enforcement. You guys made a strong presence out there along with the security. I didn't see any big issues out there.
You left there before.
I went to bed early both nights, and he's griping about it. That's just the old man in me, I guess. But we had a good time, so congratulations to everybody on the MGM side and all the staff that did all the support. Brooke was out there sweating his hind end off. You know, and I saw a lot of you guys out there, so good job and appreciate it.
You never saw Rick?
Hmm?
You never saw Rick out
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's up there.
He was on his own time. He was on city time.
Is he still on vacation?
He's probably still out there.
He's back. He was here at the beginning of our meeting, but duty called.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Right, go ahead.
I actually took the day off yesterday to recoup. So
Why do you feel better?
yeah,
It's self-induced.
it definitely was. It definitely was. And that's my story and I'm sticking to it. But yeah, I'd like to see all those cowboy hats. I think there's a lot of officers that were there this weekend that were jealous of those cowboy hats. They were like, man, I wish we had those.
Yeah.
So yeah, Goddard made a big turnout. Good job.
Tons of comments on that, you guys.
Yeah, you look good. Were those all our female officers?
School district.
School district
Oh,
assistants.
that's right.
Anything else? You good?
Well, they could have got some Walmart cowboy hats.
Maybe we can get those for council, maybe we'll get some hats for council. Krista?
I also attended the Jam Jam on Friday night with a friend, and it was very fun. And I have appreciated seeing the positive commentary on our community page regarding that particular event. So, yeah. That's all.
Anything else?
No, nothing else.
All right, I don't really have anything. I just want to thank everybody for their hard work. Chief, getting everything done, the security out there. Comment from the seniors exercise class is that it was pretty quiet. My wife said that everybody, and, I think people's expectations sometimes of things, positive or negative, create visions of things that really are far from reality. I'm very happy. The weather was good, a slight mist of rain, so appreciate everyone's efforts, and I think the community response has been positive. We'll see what happens next year. Appreciate the work on the budget. We need to continue our discussions that relates to the mill levy increase. One of the things, visiting with the advisory council, I sent out a little questionnaire. I'm looking for some feedback. I've talked to several other community members that various responses in terms of if we expend that kind of increase, we need to be straightforward and honest and show where the money's going and how we're spending it. And I think this 10-year plan lays those things out. And the transparency as we're moving through this process, I think is really important if we as citizens to really make an investment in the future of our community. One thing of note, it looks like Sedgwick County is going to lower their mill levy by 2.7 mils. So the overall impact of our mill levy increase would have a reduction in terms of the net impact to the homeowner. I think our budget takes up at 26%, 26.25% of the overall mill levy total. So you get the county's budget, which was 48 mils, they're looking at cutting that back to like 45.6. The school district is in there at 65 something if you add up all the bond and interest totals. So that 134 mils, round number, is still about 10 to 12 mils lower than Mays, 15 mils lower than Valley Center. We've operated for a long time efficiently and in a way that maybe allows us to ask for that increase because we're investing in the community, the growth that we have plotted, possibly doubling the size of the community in the next 5 to 7 years. The things that we look for grants, money and help from KDOT, and everywhere else we can look to try to provide the type of community that we want it to be. So we'll just keep working on that and try to get all the information we can and consider all the sources of income, and which includes borrowing money. So sometimes we need to have a little better understanding of where we stand on this thing. So if that is it for me, I will seek a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Chris makes most to adjourn. Aubrey seconds. Motion carries. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye.